Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you? We got some work to do now.
I'm bored, you're bored, we're all bored. Because our next major event is still a ways out, which means we're stuck with basic farming and a mystery. And guess what? Mysteries are boring and we already have the answer, so what's the point? Well, I can tell you what's cool, and it's killing a god through detective work. Welcome to a Moron's Guide to Fate Grand Order. You're probably wondering what Sherlock Holmes is doing in the classes dominated by Catholic saints and one asexual Chinese peacock, and that is because if the world realized he was summoned as a caster, he would make his way through the world's mysteries like Saber goes through an all-you-can-eat buffet. And unlike most arts-focused damage dealers, he is forced to rely on his face cards. And while that isn't a problem for the world's buffest bear, Sherlock is a bit more on the spindly side. Despite being the world's greatest detective, Sherlock is saddled with a effective but selfish kit. Natural insight allows for one to seal an NP while gaining some critical stars, infinitely better than instinct, which fits with deductive reasoning, a skill that increases his critical star gather rate and applies debuff immunity to some reason. Lastly, his Bartuzitsu skill, I am not pronouncing that right, and I will never be able to, increases his arts for 1 turn and applies evade for 1 turn, a very much Jack situation. That's kind of funny. The world's greatest detective shares a similar skill to the world's most infamous murderer. This is nothing special, though. But what about his catchphrase, elementary, my dear? Well, that's because it's a part of his noble Phantasm, obviously. This gives you all the answers you need in the form of a defense buff to all enemies, ignore defense, and increasing your critical strength, all for 3 turns. This, though, is rather deceptive, as repeating the same conclusion over and over again will have less effect, as you will miss half of the buffs available, and these 2 effects aren't always as useful as they may appear. Invul Pierce is useless if the enemy doesn't have Invul or Evades as a part of their skill set, and many challenge quests that have defense buffs have ignoring defense debuffs. Yes, that's a mouthful, and yes, I still have PTSD about the crabs. A potent combination, but quite fitting. And if there's one thing I've learned from Scooby-Doo, it's that no detective is complete. A bunch of wacky side characters. Sherlock Holmes being a crit-focused art servant with a supportive NP, but damage dealer-focused kit makes Sherlock a bit of a niche pick. This kit hampers his effective partners to an extreme degree. Like Watson, there aren't many people who can handle Sherlock, and he wants people that can both benefit from his buffs while remaining the primary attacker. 3 art servants generally stand out, outside of Waver, who goes with everyone, and the chaotic evil Fox. Caster Gill provides a arts boost for the entire party alongside an attack buff, with King's Return allowing arts cards to actually do Stargen. Helena, the tiny mage granny, gives starting charge for the whole party, MP star generation for 5 turns, buffs of every single card type for 3 turns. Paracelsus comes with a large self-charge, party-wide arts buff, and a targetable guts. Not only that, but all of them have AoE MPs that do damage, which allows them to make the most of Sherlock's defense buff and his anti-defensive buffs. And to be honest, Sherlock's non-damage dealing NP really gimps him when it comes to artsies. There's a lot of these that buff NP damage that would simply just be wasted on him. Projection and Formal Craft, while effective, are bland. Another Ending is good when you want both arts and crit. And while this is not something you typically put on Sherlock himself, 2030 is always good, though you'd rather probably have this on his supports. On other vein, Last Encore, Faithful Dog, and Moonlit Night are also decent, and if you have it, I would also recommend Shining Goddess for its joint arts and defense buffs. This is niche, but Sherlock's defensive class advantage makes it effective if you're running on a budget. I'll repeat Knight's Pride and Tumbra from my Hijikata video, as Sherlock, as a ruler, is better equipped to handle Knight's Pride as its demerit. Seal Designation Enforcer serves to increase Sherlock's overall absorption buff, and on that same thread, Avalon Celebrate, Taka the Hot Sands, and Roomgarter are also decent ideas. As a ruler, Holmes also generally goes well with health regen Cs. Bath of the Lunar Goddess, March of the Side Training, and Meat Wars are all quite effective, but many of these are event limited, so newer players won't have these options. Haha! I was lying! Sherlock actually has a diverse array of options available to him. And that's all you need to know about the honorable member of the Scooby-Doo gang. This has been your Moron's Guide to Sherlock Holmes.
Yes, and I'd have gotten away with it, too. If it wasn't for these blasted kids and their dogs.